My fiancée embarrassed me, so I took her out with her outcast cousin. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. I can pinpoint the exact moment my relationship with Emily cracked in two. It was supposed to be a celebration. Her company had landed a massive client, and she hosted a dinner party at her parents' house to show off. She invited her family, her colleagues, and of course me, her fiancé, the man who thought he was her biggest supporter. I'd spent hours preparing for that night. A new suit, polished shoes, rehearsed small talk. I wanted to make her proud. Instead, she made me a punchline. It started when one of her co-workers asked what I did for a living. Before I could answer, Emily cut in with a laugh that sliced me open. Oh, don't get him started. He runs his little graphic design business from home. Thinks he's an entrepreneur, but really it's just a hobby that pays for his coffee. The table erupted in laughter. She leaned back in her chair, sipping wine, and added, "But hey, at least he's good with Photoshop. Maybe he can design the invitations for our wedding since it's free labor." I felt my face burn. My chest tightened as I forced a smile, pretending I was in on the joke. Inside, I was crumbling. This wasn't gentle teasing. This was humiliation, deliberate and cruel, delivered in front of people whose respect I'd never win back. Her father chuckled. Her mother shook her head with that polite pity reserved for strays. Even her friends smirked, like they'd been waiting for this moment. And Emily? She basked in it, like tearing me down gave her some twisted sense of power. I barely made it through dessert. I laughed when I was supposed to, nodded when spoken to, but something inside me hardened that night. Later, when everyone was drinking in the living room, I stepped out onto the patio, needing air. That's when I saw her, Lena, Emily's cousin. The one no one talked to, the one who'd been exiled from family events after some falling out years ago. She stood alone by the garden gate, smoking quietly, not meeting anyone's eyes. Our gazes met briefly, and for a split second, I felt it. Connection. Recognition. Two outsiders orbiting the same toxic center. That night, lying awake beside Emily while she slept soundly, I made a decision. If she wanted to turn me into a joke, I'd play a role she never saw coming. I'd take her outcast cousin on a date. The morning after the party, Emily hummed in the kitchen like nothing had happened. She made coffee, scrolled through her phone, and kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work. Not a word about her jokes. Not an ounce of apology. To her, it was harmless fun. To me, it was a knife she twisted and walked away from. I sat at the table staring at my laptop, my so-called hobby project files staring back at me. Every time I replayed her laughter in my head, my stomach turned. I knew I couldn't let it go. That's when Lena's face flashed across my mind. The way she had stood apart from the others, distant but defiant, like she didn't care if she fit in. I remembered the quick spark in her eyes when we'd locked gazes. It took me half an hour to track her down on social media. Her profile was bare, hardly any photos, just a few posts about books and music. She seemed almost invisible, just like at the party. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, doubt gnawing at me. What was I doing? Was this insane? Finally, anger pushed me forward. I typed, "Hey Lena, it was nice to see you at the party last night. I don't know if you remember me, but I'd like to grab a coffee sometime, just to talk. No strings, no family drama." I hit send before I could chicken out. Hours passed. I told myself she wouldn't reply. Why would she? But then my phone buzzed. Her message was short. "Sure, just don't tell Emily." My chest tightened. She knew exactly what this was. And she didn't care. That night, as Emily lay next to me scrolling through Instagram, I stared at Lena's reply glowing on my screen. I realized I had just set something in motion I couldn't take back. And for the first time since Emily humiliated me, I felt powerful. I chose a cafe across town, the kind of place Emily would never step foot in. It was quiet, worn around the edges, with chipped mugs and music that sounded like it came from a dusty jukebox. Perfect for what I needed, privacy. When Lena walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. At the party, she'd blended into the shadows, cigarette smoke curling around her like armor. Here, under the soft cafe lights, she looked different. Still guarded, yes, but sharper. Her dark hair was tied back loosely, her jacket a little too big, her eyes clear and unflinching as she scanned the room. She spotted me, smirked, and slid into the chair across from mine. "Didn't think you'd actually follow through," she said, her voice low and steady. I shrugged. trying to play it cool even though my heart hammered. I'm a man of my word. Besides, you look like the only sane person at that circus of a party. Her smirk widened, but there was bitterness in it. Yeah, well, that's why I don't get invited to many of those anymore. The waitress brought our drinks, and for a while we just sipped in silence. Finally, Lena leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. So why me? Why risk Emily finding out you're talking to the cousin she pretends doesn't exist? Her bluntness caught me off guard, but it also forced me to be honest. Because last night, Emily humiliated me. She made me feel small in front of everyone. And you looked like you knew exactly what that felt like. Something flickered in her eyes, recognition, maybe even pain. She nodded slowly. You're not wrong. Emily's been doing that to people her whole life. I expected judgment, maybe even rejection. Instead, she laughed, soft, bitter. If you want to use me to get under her skin, I'll play along. God knows she deserves it. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I'd come here for revenge, but as I looked at Lena, her quiet strength, her refusal to bow to Emily's games, I realized this might turn into something far more complicated than I had planned. And for the first time, I wondered, who exactly was the real outcast in this family? Our coffee date was supposed to be a one-time stunt, something to take the edge off the humiliation Emily had carved into me. But one meeting turned into two, then three. Soon it wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about Lena. We started meeting in hidden corners of the city, a late-night diner off the highway, a park bench no one used, even her tiny apartment above a thrift store. Every time, I told myself it was strategic, that I was still playing a game. But the truth was, I craved those hours with her. Lena was nothing like Emily. Where Emily demanded the spotlight, Lena lived comfortably in the shadows. Where Emily cut me down with jokes, Lena listened, really listened, even when I stumbled through my words. She asked about my work, not with condescension, but genuine interest. She wanted to know what I was building, what I dreamed of. One night, over greasy fries and cheap coffee, she told me her side of the family story. Emily's parents had written her off years ago after she dropped out of college and refused to follow the family plan. She'd been branded a failure, a black sheep, an embarrassment. They pretend I don't exist, she said, looking down at her hands. Guess I make their perfect image crack. Hearing that made something inside me snap. Emily hadn't just embarrassed me. She had been cutting down everyone around her, building herself up by destroying others. And Lena was her favorite target. The lines between revenge and something else blurred fast. I'd catch myself watching Lena laugh at some sarcastic comment I made and think, when was the last time I felt this scene? The answer twisted the knife. Never, not with Emily. Still, a voice in my head warned me. I was using her. At least that's how it started. And if Emily found out, she'd unleash hell on both of us. But every time Lena looked at me with those sharp, unflinching eyes, I knew I wasn't ready to stop. It happened on a Thursday night. Lena and I were sitting in her apartment, a cramped little space with mismatched furniture and stacks of old books against the walls. She'd cooked pasta, nothing fancy, but better than anything I could have thrown together. The window was cracked open, letting in the sound of cars rushing by on the street below. We'd been laughing about something ridiculous Emily said at the party, the way she bragged about networking, as if it were an Olympic sport. I don't know what came over me. Maybe the wine, maybe the comfort I felt sitting there with Lena, but the words slipped out before I could stop them. Honestly, I said, swirling my glass. At first I only wanted to see you to get back at her. The silence that followed was brutal. Lena's fork clinked against her plate. She looked up slowly, her eyes narrowing, every trace of amusement gone. So that's what this is, she asked, voice flat. I'm just a weapon to hurt Emily? My stomach dropped. No. It's not like that anymore, I stammered. That was how it started? Yeah, but it's different now. You're different. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Different how? Because you needed someone to listen after she cut you down? Or because you realized I'm convenient? Her words cut deeper than Emily's jokes ever had. This was Lena, the one person who'd made me feel seen again, and I'd confirmed her worst fear, that she was being used. I swear it's not like that now, I said, desperate. You're not a pawn. I like being with you, more than I ever expected. For a moment, I thought she might throw me out. But then her expression softened, just slightly. If you're lying to me, you're no better than her, she whispered. The weight of that sentence crushed me, because deep down, I wasn't sure I knew the difference anymore. The next few days were tense. Lena didn't block me, didn't cut me off, but her messages were short, cautious. I couldn't blame her. If our roles were reversed, I'd probably have walked away. But then, late one night, she sent, "Come over. We need to talk." When I arrived, she was sitting on the floor surrounded by old photo albums and a half-empty bottle of whiskey. She gestured for me to sit, her face unreadable. "If you're serious about this, about me, you should know the whole picture," she said. She slid an album across the floor. Inside were family photos, most of which I'd never seen. Emily as a teenager, smiling wide in her prom dress. Emily at college parties, her arm draped around friends. But in some of the earlier photos, there was Lena, beside her, younger, smiling too. For a while, they'd been inseparable. "What happened?" I asked quietly. Lena's jaw tightened. "Emily happened. She needed someone to stand on, someone to make her look perfect. When I dropped out of school, she made sure everyone knew. Told people I was lazy, unstable, a screw-up. My own aunt wouldn't let me come to Thanksgiving after that. Emily painted me as the black sheep, and the family loved her for it." She poured herself another drink, then looked at me with eyes that burned. "But here's the part Emily doesn't want anyone to know. She wasn't perfect either. She just knew how to bury the evidence." I leaned forward. "What kind of evidence?" Lena hesitated, as if crossing a dangerous line. "Finally," she said, "when she was in college, she nearly got expelled. There was a plagiarism scandal, an entire thesis she wrote that wasn't hers. Her parents pulled strings, paid people off, and it disappeared. But I still have proof. Emails, drafts, everything." My heart pounded. The girl who mocked me, who laughed at my career, who treated me like a joke, her entire image was built on lies. Lena's lips curved into a bitter smile. "You wanted revenge? This is where it starts to get real." I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed beside Emily, her breathing steady, her face turned away from me, while Lena's words replayed in my head. "You wanted revenge? This is where it starts to get real." The proof of Emily's plagiarism, her so-called shining college career built on someone else's work, could destroy her. Her job, her family's precious image, everything. One leak, and the golden girl would fall from her pedestal. But every time I imagined pulling the trigger, I saw Lena's face, the warning in her eyes when she said, "If you're lying to me, you're no better than her." She hadn't given me the proof to use recklessly. She'd given it to me as a test. A way to see if I was driven only by spite, or if I actually cared about something beyond hurting Emily. The next day, I met Lena at the park. We sat on a bench beneath a crooked lamppost, our breath fogging in the cool air. She handed me a flash drive, small and unassuming. "Everything's on here," she said. Emails, drafts, even a message chain where she begged her friend to let her steal the paper. If this ever went public, Emily would crumble. I stared at it in my hand. Such a tiny thing, yet it carried the weight of years of pain. "Why give this to me?" I asked. Her eyes softened. "Because I want you to understand. Emily isn't untouchable. But if you go through with this, there's no going back. You'll burn her, and maybe yourself too." I turned the flash drive over between my fingers. Part of me burned with anger. Memories of Emily's cruel laughter, her cutting remarks, the way she made me feel like less than nothing. But another part of me, quieter, heavier, wondered if Lena was right. Would destroying Emily actually heal me? Or was I just trading one prison for another? I met Lena's gaze. For the first time, I admitted out loud what had been growing inside me. I don't just want to hurt her anymore. I want something real. With you. Her expression wavered. Surprise, fear, maybe even hope. But before she could answer, my phone buzzed. A message from Emily lit up the screen. "Where are you? We need to talk." And suddenly, I knew she suspected something. When I walked through the door that evening, Emily was sitting on the couch, phone in hand, her eyes locked on me like a hawk. The television was on, but muted, casting flickering light across her face. "Where were you?" she asked casually, too casually. My heart raced, but I forced a shrug. "Work meeting. Ran late." Her lips curled into that half-smile she used when she already knew the answer. "Funny. I called your office. No one saw you today." A chill ran down my spine. She was digging. She'd never cared about my schedule before, She barely asked about my day unless it was to compare it to hers. But now she was tracking me, watching. I tossed my keys on the table and headed for the kitchen. Why are you suddenly interested in my work hours? She followed me, heels clicking on the hardwood. Because you've been different. Distant. Distracted. And when I asked Mom about the party, she mentioned something strange. She paused, savoring the moment. She said she saw you talking to Lena. The name hit like a gunshot. I kept my back to her, fumbling with the coffee pot just to have something in my hands. So, it was a family party. People talk. Emily's laugh was sharp. Don't play dumb. Lena doesn't talk to anyone. Not unless she has an angle. So tell me, what's her angle with you? I turned then, forcing myself to meet her gaze. Maybe she's just a human being who deserves respect. Something you wouldn't understand. For a split second, her mask cracked. Then she stepped closer, eyes glittering with malice. Careful. You think you're clever, but you're not. Lena will drag you down with her. And if you betray me, she leaned in, her voice a whisper. I'll make sure you regret it. Her perfume clung to the air after she left the room, but all I could smell was smoke, like the warning of a fire about to consume everything. I pulled out my phone under the table and typed a quick message to Lena. She knows. The reply came seconds later. Then it's time to decide whose side you're on. That night, I barely slept. Emily's warning circled in my head like a curse. If you betray me, I'll make sure you regret it. But lying there beside her, feeling the chill of distance in a bed that should have been warm, I realized I'd already crossed the line. The regret wasn't in betraying her. It was in ever thinking she valued me at all. The next morning, I drove straight to Lena's apartment. She opened the door, hair messy, a sweatshirt hanging loose on her shoulders. One look at my face, and she knew. She suspects, doesn't she? I nodded, stepping inside. The flash drive still weighed heavy in my pocket like contraband. She knows. Or at least she's close enough. If we don't move first, she'll destroy us. Lena closed the door, arms folded tight. Then we use it. We end this. Together. We sat at her small table, the city noise buzzing through the cracked window, and laid out our options. Leak the plagiarism to her company anonymously. Send it to her parents, the very people who worshipped her perfect image. Or hit harder. Post it publicly. Make sure the whole world saw the truth. But as we talked, doubt gnawed at me. If we do this, it's not just her reputation. It's her career, her family. Everything she built, gone. Lena's eyes burned. And what about everything she's taken from us? From you, from me? She humiliated you in front of her friends because she thought you were safe to step on. She ruined my place in the family because it made her shine brighter. Emily doesn't care who she destroys. It's time she gets a taste of her own medicine. Her conviction lit a fire in me, but it also terrified me. I wanted revenge, yes, but was I ready for the fallout? I pulled the flash drive from my pocket, setting it between us. Then we make a choice. No more hiding, no more second-guessing. Either we bury this forever, or we burn her world down. Lena reached across the table, her hand brushing mine, her voice steady. So what's it going to be? And in that moment, I realized there was no middle ground left. We didn't wait long. By the next evening, the decision was made. Lena's old laptop hummed on the table between us, its cracked screen flickering as she uploaded the files. Emails, drafts, and the damning chain of messages where Emily begged a friend to let her steal their thesis. It all went into a neatly compiled folder. Anonymous leaks are harder to trace, Lena murmured, her fingers flying over the keyboard. University archives, her current company, even a few online forums. Once it's out, she can't put it back. I stood behind her, my chest tight. My hands shook not from fear, but from adrenaline. This wasn't just talk anymore. This was war. When the final file sent, Lena leaned back, exhaling. It's done. At first, nothing happened. The next day, Emily was her usual self. Perfect hair, perfect smile, snapping at me because I'd left a dish in the sink. I half wondered if the leak would get buried, lost in the endless stream of the internet. Then, 2 days later, the tremors began. Emily burst through the door, her phone clutched in her hand, face pale. Do you have any idea what's happening? She snapped. She shoved the screen at me. It was a blog post, anonymous, but detailed, accusing her of academic fraud. Attached were screenshots of her emails, the very ones Lena had saved. Her voice cracked. They're saying my degree was a sham, that I cheated. If this spreads, I could lose everything. I feigned shock, masking the fire that roared inside me. Are you serious? That's insane. She paced the living room, muttering curses, calling her parents, her boss, anyone who would pick up. Each call seemed to make her smaller, more frantic. The golden girl was slipping. That night, I texted Lena. It's working. Her reply came instantly. Good. But this is just the beginning. I stared at Emily across the room as she collapsed onto the couch, mascara streaking down her cheeks. For the first time, I didn't see the woman I once loved. I saw someone cornered, stripped of her armor, terrified. And a dangerous thought crossed my mind. If she was already unraveling, how far could we really push her before she broke completely? The fallout grew like a storm. Within a week, Emily's office was buzzing with whispers. I overheard her on the phone with her boss, her voice trembling as she swore the accusations were false. Her parents called daily, their tone sharp and frantic, demanding she fix it before the family name was dragged through the mud. At home, she became restless. Her phone never left her hand, her laptop open at all hours as she tried to do damage control. But worse than that, her suspicion shifted toward me. It started with little things. She'd ask where I'd been, what client I was meeting, who I was talking to. Her questions sounded casual at first, but the way her eyes lingered told me she wasn't buying my answers. One night, I came home later than usual. Lena and I had been meeting in a dim corner booth at a diner, planning next steps. Emily was waiting in the dark, sitting on the couch with no lights on. When I flicked the switch, she didn't move. Where were you? Her voice was low, steady, too calm. My throat tightened. Client meeting. You know I've been trying to land new work. Her head tilted, eyes glinting. Funny. I checked your email earlier. No new messages. No meetings on your calendar. Rage and panic shot through me. You went through my email? She stood, stepping closer, her perfume suffocating in the still air. I know you're hiding something, and I'll find out what it is. You think you can make a fool of me? You'll regret it. Her words slithered under my skin like poison. I locked myself in the bedroom that night, staring at the ceiling, knowing the game had changed. She wasn't just lashing out anymore. She was hunting. The next day, Lena sent me a message. She's on to you, isn't she? I typed back with shaking hands. Yes. She's watching me. What if she finds out about us? Lena's reply was quick, almost cold. Then we hit her harder before she does. But as I read those words, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me. Emily's eyes, sharp and waiting, like she was already 2 steps ahead. Emily's suspicion wasn't just paranoia, it was strategy. Within days, she tightened her grip around my life like a noose. Every move I made was under her watch. She started small, constant calls when I left the house. Where are you? Send me a picture. If I didn't answer immediately, my phone would light up with 10 missed calls and accusatory texts. At first, I brushed it off as stress, but soon it escalated. One evening, as I left Lena's apartment, I swore I saw headlights in my rearview mirror, steady, too steady, following me block after block. My chest clenched. I took 3 random turns, circling through side streets, before the car finally veered away. I sat in my driveway for 10 minutes afterward, gripping the wheel, heart hammering. The next morning, Emily casually mentioned, I noticed you drove down 5th Street last night. Strange choice if you were just meeting a client. My stomach flipped. She'd followed me. At home, she was quieter, more deliberate. I caught her rifling through my briefcase once, her hands darting back like a thief when I walked in. Another time, she left her laptop open on the counter. I glanced just long enough to see she'd installed some kind of tracking app. The walls of our house felt smaller by the day, suffocating. I couldn't text Lena without imagining Emily watching. I couldn't leave without rehearsing alibis. Every second was a performance, and still Emily's gaze pierced through, sharp and unrelenting. Finally, the breaking point came. I left a meeting with Lena, short, tense, both of us knowing the danger, and as I turned the corner of the cafe, I froze. Across the street, in her sleek black coat, stood Emily. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't crying. She just stood there, arms crossed, her eyes locked on me. And the smile that curved across her lips wasn't one of surprise. It was triumph. That's when I knew. She'd caught me. That night the silence in our house was deafening. Emily didn't speak a word on the drive back. She didn't need to. The way she gripped the steering wheel, the slight curve of her smile. It all screamed one thing. She had me cornered. When we stepped inside, she set her purse on the counter with deliberate care, then turned to me. "So," she said softly, "how long has this little game been going on?" I tried to play dumb. "I don't know what you mean." Her laugh was sharp, cutting. "Don't insult me. I saw you. I've been seeing you for weeks now, sneaking around like some lovesick teenager. And with her, of all people." She leaned closer, her eyes burning into mine. "Lena, the family reject. You couldn't have picked anyone more pathetic if you tried." My fists clenched. "Don't talk about her like that." Emily's brows shot up, amused. "Oh, so now you defend her? Interesting. I embarrass you once, and suddenly you're running into the arms of the cousin I've kept out of this family for good reason." Her voice dropped lower, venomous. "Do you know what people will say when they find out? That you're weak. That you couldn't handle a strong woman, so you settled for scraps." The words hit their mark, but this time I didn't swallow the pain. I stood my ground. "No, Emily. What people will say is that you built your entire life on lies. You humiliate people to make yourself feel powerful, but without the image you protect, you're nothing." Her face stiffened, just for a second. Then she smirked again, masking the crack. "You think you've won something? You're a fool. I've always been 3 steps ahead of you." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the flash drive in my pocket. Not this time. The color drained from her cheeks, just slightly, but enough. She knew I had something. She just didn't know how much. And for the first time, I saw it, the flicker of fear in her eyes. Lena, and I knew there was no turning back. Emily had me pinned emotionally, but if we didn't hit her first, she'd bury us both. That flash drive wasn't just evidence anymore. It was a weapon, and we were ready to use it. We chose our moment carefully. Emily's company was hosting a high-profile networking gala, the kind of event where reputations were polished like diamonds. She would be there, grinning in photos, shaking hands, pretending her world wasn't already cracking. That's when we decided to light the fuse. The night before, Lena sat across from me at her tiny kitchen table, laptop open, her fingers steady as she typed. Together, we drafted an anonymous email blast, with attachments of Emily's plagiarized thesis, the email chains, everything. We addressed it to her company executives, her colleagues, even a few journalists Lena knew from her time working in publishing. Once I hit send, "It's over," Lena said, glancing up at me. "No undo button. You ready?" I hesitated only a second. Then I nodded. "Do it." Her finger pressed the key, and just like that, Emily's carefully crafted empire began to collapse. The next day, I went with Emily to the gala. She strutted through the lobby in a red dress, dazzling, pretending nothing was wrong. But her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. First one call, then another. She brushed them off, smiling at the crowd, until her boss finally approached her, face grim. He pulled her aside, and though I couldn't hear their words, I saw the shift in her face. First confusion, then denial, then the mask shattering as the truth hit. The crowd around us began murmuring, phones in hand, eyes darting toward Emily like vultures circling fresh prey. She stumbled back toward me, mascara smudging, her voice cracking. "It was you," she whispered, trembling. "You did this." And for once, I didn't look away. I met her gaze and said, "No, Emily, you did this to yourself." Her hands shook as she tried to steady her glass, her whole body quivering under the weight of exposure. For the first time, the queen had no throne. But as I watched her unravel, a darker thought slipped into my mind. What if she wasn't finished yet? The fallout was instant. By the following morning, Emily's face was splashed across every business blog and local news outlet. Rising executive exposed for plagiarism scandal. Her company suspended her, pending internal review, which was corporate language for "you're done here." Her parents, the ones who had always paraded her like a trophy, released a terse statement about being deeply disappointed. But Emily wasn't the kind of person to lie down quietly. That evening, she stormed into the apartment, her heels echoing like gunshots on the hardwood floor. Her hair was wild, makeup smeared, but her eyes burned with a venom I hadn't seen before. In her hand was a folder, thick with papers. "You think you've won?" she hissed, slamming it down on the table. "You and her? You think you can humiliate me and walk away clean?" I opened the folder. My stomach dropped. Photos of me and Lena, at the diner, leaving her apartment, even the night we sat on the park bench. Grainy but clear enough. Proof of everything. I hired someone, Emily said, her smile twisted. You're not the only one who can dig up dirt. When your family sees this, when your friends see this, what will they say? That you betrayed your fiancée with her pathetic cousin? That you couldn't keep it in your pants? For a moment, panic surged. She still had power. She still had a way to hurt us. But then Lena stepped from the doorway. She'd insisted on being here tonight. She walked right up to Emily, eyes sharp, voice steady. Do it, Lena said. Send them. Post them. Because for once, they'll also see the truth about you. You're not a victim, Emily. You're a bully who finally got caught. Emily's face faltered, just for a second. Her hands trembled as she clutched the photos. And in that moment, I realized her last weapon was already dull. People had seen her empire collapse. Her threats were just noise now. She screamed, ripped the photos in half, and shoved past us out the door. It slammed so hard the frame shook. Lena let out a shaky laugh. She's done. I sank into the chair, the weight of months crashing down. So are we what? Together now? Or was this just survival? Lena studied me, then sat down beside me, her hand resting lightly on mine. Maybe it started as revenge, she said softly. But it doesn't have to end that way. For the first time in years, I felt something break free inside me. Not anger, not bitterness. Relief. Emily was gone. Her shadow still lingered, but it no longer controlled me. And sitting beside Lena, I realized I had finally reclaimed something Emily could never touch. My dignity, my choice, and maybe my future.